Make sure you get this finished. Make sure you get it turned in. It's due today. We are moving on to more Python. So the language that we've decided to use for Intro to Computer Science stuff is called Python. There are a lot of different languages, but like I said, this one's pretty easy as a beginner language. Additionally, it's a real life legit programming language. So we showed you this slide before we did Code Combat, but I want to show it to you again. It is a widely used language. YouTube, Dropbox, Instagram, Google, and Netflix all use it in some form or another across their platforms. So it's incredibly powerful. You can do really neat stuff with it. That's what we are going to be using as we work through something called Codesters. Open up a new tab. Google Codesters. It's up on the board. It's code and then sters behind it. Click on the first link that comes up. Follow along with me, guys. In a tab, Google Codesters. Click on the first link that comes up. Click sign up for free.
What's that class?
Say you're a student and your class fee is on the board. It is 7A62AB. This is for 7th period. If you're watching the video in your first period, shoot me an email and ask for the code. Don't join 7th period. Makes a mess. Okay. Then go ahead and click join your class and join with Google. Maybe type in your name. Maybe not. Allow it to do all the things. 7A. Refresh. Oh, there we go. Okay. 7A62AB. All right, and then pause. I know it's so tempting to start working, but don't do that yet because we're going to be working in Codesters on and off probably through March. It's a long time away. Part of the reason it's going to take us a while to get through it is because we're going to do a little bit of work in Codesters, and then we're going to switch and do a little bit of work from a different unit. And then we'll go back to Codesters, and then we'll go to a different unit to try to get you a little bit of variety so you're not like, oh, more Codesters, right? We want to kind of keep it fresh and interesting. As we'll jump back and forth between this and another unit. And then partly because there's a lot of information that you guys are supposed to learn programming-wise in this class. And so we're going to use Codesters to do that. First, let's get you introduced to the screen that you're on. Go ahead and click Get Started on the box that popped up. So what you're looking at looks similar to what I have on my screen. Don't start working and ignore me. Pay attention. So the first thing that it's pointing to right here is called your toolkit. It's over on the left-hand side. That has all of the tools that you can use. One of the reasons that we picked Codesters is because of the way that it's set up. I can go through and I can see all of the options on my toolkit. I can click on it and I can drag it over to the code editor and I can drop it. So it's a little bit like App Inventor in that you click on something and you drag it into your program. But unlike App Inventor, I can click on that code editor and I can change what the code says. I can also just straight type the code in on my own. I don't have to click on something and drag it over. So we're moving you a little bit at a time towards programming in text on your own. Okay, this part right here where it says instructions, part B on my screen, every level is going to have instructions. And I know that we're tempted to just try to read as little as we can. You guys, I really want to encourage you for this to read your instructions. It's going to make it so much easier if you're reading the information that they're giving you and following along with those instructions. Sometimes they'll give you hints on there that will help you solve the levels that you're on. So much easier. So please, please, please read the instructions for each level. And then that part on the left is called the stage, or sorry, the right is the stage. And that's where your code is actually going to play out. So I'm going to show you this little walkthrough video. You can understand how it all starts. Okay. I don't know. Okay, we're not going to watch the walkthrough for the whole thing because we're going to actually do it together today. And so there is one thing I want to try to point out in here. This is an error bubble. You are going to have errors in your code. Every single person in here will. It's just how it works. Even as I code, I run into errors. I misspell stuff. I accidentally leave out a symbol. It's just, that's programming. The part about programming that's important is how do you handle it when you get an error? Do you just, oh, I don't know what to do and copy off your friend, or do you problem solve and figure out what's wrong? That's the value of computer science. I feel like that's why it's valuable for everybody to take computer science, because it helps you develop some problem solving strategies and techniques that you can use that are going to apply in all of your classes. Um, so let's go ahead and I'm going to move on. We're going to do the first few levels together. Okay, so don't get started yet because we'll kind of walk through those. But here's a few things if you do get stuck. First, if you get stuck, there is feedback that shows up on the screen that tries to help you if you're missing something. There's also a little box like I showed you that'll pop up that helps you find where the issue is, and even will give you a suggestion about how to fix it most of the time. So please utilize the tools they're giving you. Reread the instructions to make sure you're not missing something. Look at the feedback on the stage. And then there is a reset button right here. It kind of looks like the refresh symbol on the Google Chrome browser. What that does, it doesn't undo all of the progress you've made on all of the levels. It just restarts the level that you are currently on. So if you've made a mess of something and you're not quite sure how to fix it, one of the best things to do is just hit reset and reread the instructions to try it again. 9 times out of 10, that's going to help students get it done. This action bar here in the middle is really important. The green is how you run your code to see how it plays out. The blue is the submit. What that does is it submits your work to Codester's servers. That way I can see your progress and it saves your progress when you log off. So really important when you're done with a lesson, click submit. And then this next button moves you on to the next little level. And then here's a debugging checklist. I'll put this back up as we start working individually. A few different things that you can do to debug. If your program runs into an error, your first response should not be, it's not working. Can you fix it? Because I promise you, I probably can. I've done all of these levels more times than I cared to tell you about. But that's not the point. It's not if I can fix it, it's can you fix it, right? So a few debugging techniques. First, read the error message. I can't tell you how many times I've sat next to a student to help them and they run it and the error message pops up and they click right out of the error message. That's helping you identify what's wrong. If you just click out of it, you're making it harder on yourself. Don't do that. Number 2, reread the instructions. I said that already. What are they asking you to do? Are there any hints or keys in the instructions? Because often there are. Check your colors, and we'll learn a little bit more about this as we go, but strings should be green, numbers should be blue, sprite names should be orange, and variables should be orange. So check those things. Number 4, check for some common errors. Common errors are I have misspelled something or miscapitalized something. Capital A is different than lowercase a in binary. We know that. And so it's important that it's always capitalized and spelled the same. Are you missing quotation marks, and are you missing parentheses? Those are some of the most common errors. And then lastly, check your sprite for errors. So when you come up to a problem in your program, which everybody will at some point, these are different techniques you can use to try to figure out how to fix it. Okay? If you try those and you're still stuck, oh my goodness, I'm here to help, definitely. But if I get there and you haven't read the error message, that's not okay. Okay? You try to do stuff on your own to fix it. All right, so let's go to Codesters together. Sorry. And let's preview the first lesson. So like she said in the video, as soon as you go to a lesson, the first thing it'll do is it'll pop up with a little box that kind of tells you what you're going to be learning in this specific lesson. The way that we will do this, starting with lesson 2, we will do an intro slides that gives you an idea of what information you're going to be learning during that lesson. I'll have you work on the activities. The last activity is going to be one where you show me that you understood everything you learned and all of the activities leading up to it. So this one, there's 1 through 17. On 18, you apply what you learned in 1 through 17. Okay? So we'll do that. Sometimes we'll do the last activity as a class. Sometimes you'll do it individually, and sometimes we'll skip it. It just depends on the lesson. We went back and we evaluated which of those we thought were really useful for you to do. Then, after we're done with all the activities and you're done with the final one, there is a Kahoot for every single level. We'll do a Kahoot. So it's important as you're working through it, don't just throw the code in that they're telling you to throw in. Work to understand it, because we'll do a Kahoot to test your understanding that you get a grade for. It's also, if we're working on this through March, this stuff builds. And if you don't pay attention in the first few lessons and you just kind of get through it as quick as you can to get through it, by the time we get to the end of February, the beginning of March, you're going to be lost and super frustrated. And there's no need for that. Because if you pay attention to what we're doing now, it's really pretty easy to progress through this stuff. But if you're just doing the minimum and you're trying to get it done as fast as you can, it gets hard. Don't let it get hard. Spend the time, okay? Okay, so I'm going to say get started, and then we're going to read the instructions. So it says, before we get started making your very first program, let's look at an example. First, click Run to see the program that you will create today. The program has a background and a sprite, so I'm going to hit Run. A sprite's a character that moves and is clickable. So my little fox fell to the ground. He's on a winter scene. He moved over to this side and he says, click on me. So I'm going to click on him. I missed. I'm going to click on him. He jumps up, spins around, and goes back to the ground and says, great job. Okay, so that's it. I get a green check mark up at the top and it tells me great job. So I'm going to submit my work to their servers and I'm going to move on to the next part of the lesson. Super simple, right? Okay, this one, our instructions say, step 1, let's get started by adding a background image to the stage. In the toolkit, which is this stuff over here on the left, you guys are going to see there's a lot of different categories. Well, stage is where I'm going to go to find backgrounds. They will highlight the background that they want you to add, but before you just blindly grab the one that's highlighted, I would encourage you to take a second to look at the options. If you hover over them, it pops up with a little thumbnail of what that background looks like. And you guys can scroll and see there are a ton of backgrounds that we can use in Codesters. So you got a lot of flexibility. But specifically for this one, they want us to add summer. So it's the very first one. I'm going to click on it, drag it over to my code editor, and drop it. Does that say summer? Yes. Okay, so now I'm going to run it. My summer showed up. It gave me a green check mark and it says great job. And I can submit it and move on to the next one. Do you guys see as we're moving through here, it's giving me a green check mark on each one that I got done? That's your goal. To be done with this lesson, you need to have green check marks all the way across. Okay, let's go ahead and go to the next one. Step 2, it says, let's change the background image of our stage from summer to winter. Refresh. Yeah.
That's not how the seasons work.
Okay, so first, you guys see that little key right below where it says step 2? Anytime you see that key, they are telling you information that you really need to understand. It's important. Sometimes it'll help you with this specific level, but it is definitely going to help you as you continue to code. So this one says symbols are important. Be sure you don't delete the quotes or parentheses when making changes. Do you guys know if you double click on a word, it auto selects it? So I'm going to double click on summer. It highlights it, and I'm going to type in winter. And I'm going to spell it right. Okay, when I hit run, as long as I left the symbols alone, it gives me a green check mark. It changes the background to winter, and I can upload it and move on to the next program. Okay, let's do, I'm pretty sure just the next one together, and then I'm going to give you guys the freedom to work through it on your own. But this level is different because they have a program that has a bug in it. That means something's wrong. And we have to debug, which means remove whatever is wrong. It says program does not work, it has a bug or error, so we have to debug it. And it gives us another rule. That rule says image labels must have quotes around them. So just by reading that rule, you should be able to look at your code editor and figure out what's wrong. Right? If they have to have quotes around them, does City have quotes? It doesn't. But let's go ahead and run it because I want you to see what happens when we have an error anyway. You see that box that pops up? It says, oops, unclosed string on line 1. So it tells me where to look, and it tries to help tell me what's wrong. It's not going to be right every time, but it's going to try. And then it shows me the code it's talking about. Sure enough, I'm missing a quote there. So I'm going to click behind city. I'm going to add quotations, and I'm going to run it. That's fixed my program. Okay? All right, guys, go ahead and work individually to try to get through. You see how if I hover over this, it shows me what number it is? We're doing 1 through 17 today. Oh. Most of them are pretty quick. So most of my students' first hour got done. Go ahead and try to get done with 1 through 17. You're working independently. I'm okay if you listen to music as long as it comes through the computer. Go ahead and get to work.